Welcome, Brad Ricks, to the House of Shadows and Ink, where fans and creators of anything dark, mysterious, scary just hang out and get to know each other. So, welcome.
Hi, happy to be on.
Oh, cool. So, let's see. Uh, we've been working together now for what, like 2 years, I think.
Yeah, pretty close to that now.
I think it all started with the Night Crew when your book landed on my desk, so to say, and I just saw vampires and immediately I was like, oh, yes, please. And I will just a quick read and I knew, okay, so you can write, it's about vampires. It starts off really scary. So I was hooked immediately. Just what can you tell us about? Let's start with the Night Crew.
Okay. So a little bit of now about the Night Crew. For those who haven't read it yet, if you haven't, I don't know why you haven't, but if you haven't read it yet, um, it's about a guy who he comes home from work and his wife has been murdered. He doesn't get much help from the local authorities. The main detective is actually kind of an ass, and he decides to do a little investigating on his own. He ends up coming face to face with his wife's killer, but finds out that in which case he learns that his wife's killer is a vampire. And as I like to say, he kind of becomes almost food for thought himself. And until a group of hunters who call themselves the Night Crew, they jump in and save him. And then he joins forces with them so that he can get revenge for his wife's murder.
Okay, excellent. And as most of us, especially the two of us know, there's a sequel coming out,
Yes,
I believe in November. So
yes.
without giving anything away about the first book, what's happening in the second one?
So in the second book, so the team dynamic has changed. Now that now that Mike's kind of a part of it, which I mean, you can read the back cover and find that out. So I'm not going to give too much away on that. But so the team dynamic is a little different, and they, being a group of monster hunters, they get a call about some some issues going on in New Orleans is where I set the second one. I love the city of New Orleans. I love the kind of the mystique and the whole history behind it and all that. So it had a feel that I was looking for, and so I, so they head to New Orleans and have to confront a creature that is a lot older and stronger than anything they've had to face before. And in the series as a whole, there are some things that happen in the first one that start kind of teeing up that the kind of the balance that there's been between those creatures that go bump in the night and humans. There's been this nice little balance that gets very much disrupted in the first one and in the first series, and that those ripples kind of continue on through the subsequent books.
Okay, yes, and talking about subsequent, there is going to be a third one. And if it's up to
Yes.
me, there's going to be a lot more, but we'll get into the other avenues in a bit. But yes, so I like it when well, let's say a series starts with you've got this little glimpse into a world and you've got your main character and things happen. And then all of a sudden in like book two, you realize, okay, so this world is much bigger than we thought it was.
Right.
Think of, was it Dawn of the Dead? They're at the end where the camera pans down and you see the size of that pyramid. And I think there was a series as well a few years later. So yes,
Hmm.
no, amazing. And I mean, vampires, let's say if they have been around for a long time, this they would be like all these secret societies and like just this massive underworld kind of structure for them. So yes, talking about the future of the Night Crew. I mean, you have a podcast now, and with Crystal Lake Games coming in now with Ghostland and a few other projects, we've been talking about a game for the Night Crew for quite a while now, and I'm really still behind it. So fingers crossed on that. But yes, tell us about the podcast.
So the Night Crew podcast, since let me come back up for a second. So since the books are about monsters and monster hunting and that kind of stuff. Then with the podcast, I kind of do a deep dive into monsters. It's I actually teed it up. I was talking, I sent out a newsletter yesterday, and I said, listen to the podcast so that you can also, you can learn what the night crew knows because, one day your life may just depend on it. Who knows?
Mm.
And so I'm right now, I've started a series, of course, with vampires because I love vampires. They're my favorite. And so I've been doing a deep dive in vampires. Once I'm done with the vampire aspect of it, then I'm going to switch up and do, I'll change to some different monsters, do werewolves. We'll talk
Mm.
ghosts and haunted houses. We'll talk Rougarous and Wendigos and whatever kind of, creatures out there. Just do a deep dive into, what are they, how do you kill them? How do you, what, all this kind of stuff, where did they come about in mythology and those kind of things. I'm kind of diving as deep as I can into, the various, just monsters and cryptids and all that kind of good stuff. And then I kind of couple that with that way it's not just me talking all the time. I couple
Mm.
that with every other episode I've been having doing author interviews as well. Kind of like this, we just kind of talk about hey, tell me about your writing career. Tell me what, of the books that you've written, what's your favorite? Which that's always a favorite question because it's like picking your favorite child. And so, but, I just kind of have those conversations. And then about midway through, kind of the caveat on coming on the show is you have to tell me what your favorite horror monster is and why, and some good movies or books and things like that. And then also say if it is some very random, like this is from, ancient Egypt, the third dynasty, blah blah. I was like, you're gonna have to do a lot of descripting. So,
For sure.
um, so yeah, so that's kind of the tee up a little bit for for the
Mm.
podcast. It's been going about a month and a half now.
Okay.
I was going to do twice a month, but after getting a whole bunch of authors who wanted to be on and already getting those recorded and also just the general content and I just have a lot of stuff I could talk about. I decided to do a weekly and so it drops every Monday.
Oh, excellent. Well, that's quite a schedule. Good luck with that. Um,
Yeah, we'll see how long I can hold I can hold that. But
no,
so
that's
far
good.
I've gotten everything already kind of pre-recorded and teed up all the way almost through October. So like I said, having those author interviews kind of intermingled really helps
Mm.
to from a from a content standpoint, I don't have to usually the episodes are about 20 minutes if it's just me talking. Author interviews go longer just because I mean we get to chatting and I got ADD and so that kicks in and suddenly we're all over the
Mm.
place.
No, that I've realized once if you're passionate about something, like the moment you get going, like people actually have to like slow you down. I actually get out of breath sometimes, just like going, and I get way too excited, and it looks like I'm gonna have a heart attack or something. Just like waiting. That's just like excitement. So, okay, so
I have the same issue. Like I have to typically when I'm recording a podcast and I'm doing one of the scripted episodes, I have to put a note on my monitor and all it says is slow down
mm,
because I know that as I get going, I'm gonna get to talking fast and just because you get excited. And so I have to purposely tell myself, hey, slow down.
oh, I should probably do the same thing because I heard someone like been doing a lot of research and like training and all kinds of stuff, and they say like you should actually talk a third of the pace that you're used to. So it might feel like you're a snail, but it actually, especially like in educational type presentations, so that everyone can take it in. But I'll have to get used to that. But yes,
It is hard, yes.
no, back to your podcast. So what I
Yes.
think is going to be really cool is if you get guests from, and I mean that's the bonus of technology today. You can have guests from all over the world, and they can start telling you about their local legends and stuff, and we can learn about monsters that we've never even heard of, which is just such a bonus. Okay, so
Yeah, I'm
then.
definitely excited to be able to do that. Yes.
So I'm not going to ask you your favorite child is, but I'm going to ask you your first child. What is the first book that got you into, let's go with vampires?
Oh, first book from a vampire standpoint, um, probably Salem's Lot.
Oh,
I
nice.
I really enjoyed Salem's
Yeah.
Lot. From a no, the first movie was kind of crappy, so we won't talk about that. But the book
Mm,
was wonderful.
amazing.
I loved the book Salem's Lot. Um, Movie standpoint, I mean, I'm very much a Lost Boys fan, so it's that's one of my favorite vampire movies. But yeah, I would say Salem's Lot.
I've actually been thinking that if there is a vampire resurgence in movies, that's probably the first movie they're gonna remake, and I wonder how people are gonna react because that's a big fan favorite. Like you don't normally don't touch those, but I mean for like a younger
Right,
generation, a lot of the movies we watched were remakes that inspired us. So if it's gonna inspire young people, um, I'd say go for it. But you know the difference between presenting something for a younger audience and just trying to make money off it. So
right.
at least we get to judge. We're old enough to judge now since we're fans of The Lost Boys. Yes, okay, so let's go way, way back. Um, Instead of just vampires, where did it all start? From like a creator aspect, from just wanting to create something, ideas, just like wanting to get out and you don't know what to do with them, to your imagination, just like when you knew, like, okay, I might be a bit different.
So definitely from when I was a kid, for those who know me now may not believe this, but when I was a kid, I was a fairly shy kid. I usually enjoyed just kind of hanging out in my room, reading, kind of sticking to myself. And so I would write little short stories and things like that. And that definitely, you kind of realize early on, you want to try, if you're a creator, you want to have an outlet and you want to get
Mm.
things that creativity needs to come out or you're going to explode. And so I used to write short stories and do that when I was a kid. And like I said, I would just kind of hang out in my room and do that. And then when I was in high school, I learned to play guitar. And so then a lot of my creativity came out from a songwriting standpoint. So I learned to sing, I learned to play guitar, and so I did a lot of songwriting all through college. That's typically what I did was songwriting, and even after for a long time. I didn't really get back into doing I didn't really get back into doing the writing aspect of things until 6, 7 years ago from a more long form writing outside of doing songwriting.
No, that's good. And I was actually looking at your like Amazon bio and all the books you've got, and I have to say, I think there were four books, one anthology and three novels.
Correct.
And I mean, I've been in the publishing business now since 2012, and I was like a short story author after that. And just looking at your skill level, I'd have guessed that you had more than four books already. Well, three and
Thank
an
you.
anthology. So you are, and that shows through the fact that, like you telling now, you wrote songs because you could clearly see that you've been doing this professionally for quite a while. I mean, so now you just need to like get more books out, I'd say, because it's
I'm,
your
I'm
writing is
working
very
on
good.
it.
No, that's it. Don't let the podcast hold you back too much. Like,
No, I tend to be I'm very much a stickler to schedule as much as I
mm,
can. And I get up early in the morning. I'm usually a fairly early riser, except today I kind of slept in a little bit, but usually a fairly early riser. And it is something I even said in a podcast the other day I was on that from a schedule standpoint, and I always block myself off time and to say this is my dedicated time to make sure I am doing whether it's the podcast, whether it's writing, whatever it is, this is my creative time. And creatures, humans, we're creatures of habit. And so if you establish that habit that this is the time that I'm going to be sitting down to write, your your brain, your body and stuff will adjust to that, and it'll be there and ready for you, even if you're not necessarily ready. As soon as as soon as I turn the lights off and I turn some classical music on and I light a candle, and suddenly everything is just it's that habit that it's that Pavlovian instinct just kind
Mm.
of kicks in, and you're and it things just kind of open up and unlock. And so I've the more I've kind of stuck to a schedule, then yeah, I'm able to kind of balance and say, all right, so I'm going to use, my Saturdays, I'm going to work on podcasts and get those all set up and, hopefully queued up for the next couple of weeks. And then the rest of the week, I have time to, you know, be able to focus just on novel writing and or short stories and those kind of things.
That's good advice because it's the same with guys just going to the gym. Same hour every day, every week. Your body just gets used to it and expects it. It's a muscle, the brain, and
Correct.
creativity as well. Um, so now I'm gonna have to cut this part because I forgot what my follow-up was. Um, let me just grab. Just give me a second.
No, you're all
Um,
good.
because I don't want to like try and remember my next question so much that I don't pay attention enough. Uh, we were talking about, oh yes, the like actual writing stuff now. Um, something about that I tell the students as well. Sorry,
No, you're fine.
this happens a lot. But yes, let's focus on like the writing part of it. Um,
Okay.
oh yes, okay. Okay, so we'll go on from here. So what I've also seen and said to a lot of authors is when when you have this dedicated time and your family and your friends, everyone knows about it. And if they can't respect that, let's say 1 hour, and for some people, I'll say even 20 minutes. As long as you get that certain time of the day that everyone knows this is your creative time, you're going to get something done. And eventually, the amount of writing you'll get done in 20 minutes is going to increase because your mind is immediately on and you go for it. And you know that this is important. There's no distractions. You're offline. Your phone isn't there. You can finish a book in a year on 20 minutes a day.
Definitely. And one thing I said in a panel that I was on, it was giving advice for new writers. The other thing was don't force words. Don't I'm more so trying to make sure I stick with this time frame that I have than make sure that I am getting 1,000 words a day or something like that.
Mm,
Because if you're forcing it, you're going to end up forcing 500 or 1,000 words of crap, and then the next day you're just backspacing 998 words. I was like,
mhm,
if all you get done in that time frame, if you get 20 words that are good and where they need to be, then that's still 20 words forward compared to, again, if you write 500 words that you're deleting, 499 of them.
mm. It's the same with when you write a novel. Every word, every sentence, every scene needs to move something forward. So whether it's like the character, the plot, build suspense, whatever. It is the
Hmm.
same with your writing. Like you need to just move forward every day. If you can go to bed at night and say, like, I'm inched forward today, but it's further than I was yesterday.
Correct.
That's the key. And not just for a book, I'd say for like your career. So when you're taking up time to do your podcast, I mean, that is also moving forward because you're not just thinking about getting that book done. We've seen books that are well put together, well written, and they don't sell because you have to find the audience. So you're building on that audience already, whether it's going to be the authors who have been on your show, they support you. If they write about monsters, they most likely also enjoy reading about monsters. And of course, the listeners of the podcast. It's the same that we're doing here on YouTube and TikTok. We're building a fan base of people who enjoy certain types of work, but they also want to hear from the authors and the creators. But first off, we're all fans, and hopefully we're going to get a lot of great recommendations here and be able to just support authors and have a bigger market in the end for everything that we do. So fingers crossed on that as well. And that's why
Well,
it's
and
nice having
to
you
me,
here.
it's oh, and I appreciate it, but like for me, it's all about you know, everybody talks about your brand and supporting your brand, and so part of adding in the podcast aspect was, yeah, I have the Night Crew books, but this is just kind of expanding upon the my brand, so that it's not just people can read the words, they can also hear my voice, and I'm having again those conversations with authors, and just as readers, you're not just hearing me, you're also, yeah, again, you're hearing conversations I'm having with those who are in the industry.
Mhm. And I know and I've said this before, I know it sounds like people are using each other in a certain way when you think ahead from like a business perspective. Like years ago, I mean, one of the reasons I've been successful through Crystal Lake is because I've been very methodical in my planning and I've opened certain doors through relationships. But that doesn't mean you use the people. I mean, I'm still friends with every single person who helped me, and I'm helping. That's like part of my brand. And Chris Lakes, we help a lot of people as well. But as an author, and this is for all the authors listening now, you have to think 5 to 10 years ahead. Some of the authors you're interviewing will most likely give you a blurb down the line and say something awesome about your book. Or they're going to ask you because you are now the monster expert and they're going to ask you to write a forward, maybe for an anthology. And again, you're going to get your name out more out there, become more visible, become like a expert in your field kind of thing. And we have to think of these things ahead of time. And again, it's a business. If you're an author, if this is your career, you are allowed to make financial decisions and make money as long as you return the favor and we help everyone around us.
Yes, I agree 100%.
Okay, excellent. Now, I want to ask you a question that's maybe a bit more personal. You don't have to answer it. If if there's a certain type of theme to your work, let's say like an overall theme about loss, or for instance, maybe the monsters are about bullying or something. Is there anything from your personal life that you'd say comes across in your work as a theme?
Um, Maybe a little. I haven't really thought about it that way, so it's kind of interesting that an interesting question. If if so, I don't think it's like like all of my books, you kind of wrap them up into one set theme. Each one I think has a little bit of me in it, in how it's or kind of theme in regards to again about me. I'm kind of stumbling through this, but
Mhm.
because one a question I had thought about before. But like for instance, I tend to be a little more lighthearted and funny in nature, and so you read my book To Hell with Hallmark, and you definitely see that there's a lot of my humor and my comedy in To Hell with Hallmark. I mean, it's I always tell people the book takes itself as seriously as a Hallmark Christmas movie takes itself, and it definitely comes across in the writing. So there are aspects of me that you'll find in those. The Night Cruise, that series, it's some good action horror, and I love that. I love, that's something I enjoy in movies. Again, like I said, Lost Boys or 30 Days of Night and Blade are some of
Mhm.
my favorite when it comes to, vampire movies. And those are, they have a good bit of action in them. You take Lost Boys, yeah, the whole beginning of it has a lot of horror and all that, but by the time it gets to the end and they're sharpening stakes and they're making bathtubs of holy water with garlic in it, I mean, it's an action movie at that point.
Mm.
It's let's go kill us some vampires. So you know I so I really again I enjoy that stuff, so I tend to write really the stuff that I enjoy. And
Mm,
and I think, that's part of why you you have to write what it is you love. If not, it's gonna come across in the page that this is not something that you love doing.
mm,
And so, from a theme, I think I don't I don't so much have, again, have kind of thought about the theme in it as much as these are the books that I write are definitely you can read these and you can say I can probably pick what Brad's playlist is, or because it mirrors who I am. Um, Even the first one I had come out, which was Fear Not the Dead, it I am a huge Edgar Allan Poe fan, probably more so than Stephen King. I love Edgar Allan Poe. I love how he was able to do so much description, so much of what he did into and compress it into a short story,
mm.
and in just as few words as possible be able to do that. And so in Fear Not the Dead, there's a lot of descriptive. I make the setting itself as almost a character, similar, it kind of my ode to Poe at that.
Oh, brilliant. No, I'm a big fan as well. For those who want a good Christmas dark humor kind of book, I'll put the link in the description for sure. Definitely get that. It's getting to that time of the year now where well, it's August now when we record, that people are going
Right.
to start looking for Halloween and Christmas reads and even like somehow combine the two. We've also got a Christmas horror book coming this year. And it's like people just love Christmas horror books that time of the year. We have a book that came out years ago, where the dead go to die with Mark Allen Gunnels and Aaron Dries, and the sales pick up every year as we near Christmas. It just keeps coming back, which is just
Well,
awesome.
it was awesome whenever it came out last year, and people, I started having readers reach out after they would read it, and they're like, "Oh my God, I love this! This is going to be an annual read for me," and things like that. And I'm like, oh, and so as a joke, I made these little ornaments, and it's a gingerbread man who's waving, and it says "To hell with Hallmark,"
Mm.
on the outside of him, and I put a little ribbon on it. I was like, oh, it'll be fun to sell. And I sold them, and then it dawned on me because like here at our house for Christmas time, what's on the Christmas tree is typically it's things the kids made. It's
Mm.
it's those kind of sentimental things, and I'm like, holy crap, there are going to be people who have their Christmas tree up, and it's going to have my little ornament on there. And so I was like, suddenly I was like, wow. I was like, hey, now that kind of hit me that people actually will have something of mine on their Christmas tree for
That's
those
so
who
cool.
bought it. Yeah.
No, I love that. I'll definitely think of those things when it comes to like marketing down the line for Christmas books and um, let's say holiday themed books. Yes. So, Brad, tell me about I don't want to say your process. We know you have your set time every day, but the actual craft of writing. So, you went from songwriting. Was it a big change? And how did you practice and start with all the basics and just went on from there?
So it definitely was a big change in going from songwriting to really sitting down and writing a novel, because in songwriting everything is kind of compressed into 3.5 minutes, and try to get it into a very small form, say as much as you need to with as little words as possible, that kind of stuff. And it also has to match in a beat or end in a particular word for a
Mm,
for a rhyming pattern. So there's a lot of stylistic things that have to happen from a songwriting perspective. So changing that to having more open-ended creativity possibility in a long form was definitely a change. But even then, I still find myself sometimes in as I'm writing, being very concise but impactful with my words, similar to that songwriting that I've been doing for years.
mm,
But so it was definitely a change. Although my wife would probably tell you when I first started doing novel writing, and I didn't have to kind of stick with, oh, you got to get everything done into 3.5 or 4 minute song. I definitely swap the needle away on the other side, and like I would go into like Charles Dickens kind of description on stuff, and so she would read my stuff and be like, mark this paragraph off, mark this paragraph off. She was like, you can sum this up in 3 words. I'm like, yeah, I know. Okay, let me get back to doing that. So as soon as the as soon as the the chains were released, I just went hog wild for a bit. But fortunately, she reined me back in, so y'all have my wife to all thank for that.
Cool.
Um, but yeah, because she's always my first reader. She's also she used to be a school teacher, so she goes through and she edits my stuff. She gets the red pen out and just
Oh,
goes to
yes.
town, and I print it out, and I mean she gets a big stack of papers, and that's why she prefers it. And she just goes to town. She's marking all over it. She's writing notes in the margins, and I get the pages back from her. And it looks like I failed the test, and it's bad. Um, but with every iteration, she has told me she's like these are not near as bad as they used to be. I'm like, hey, I
Oh,
can
nice.
learn. Um, but yeah, so yeah, but I when I first kind of was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down and write a novel, and because again, like I said, I had done short stories when I was a kid, and so again, that's just that creative thing. I was like, I'm gonna write a novel. I'm gonna see if I can do this, and it was almost an exercise in discipline at that point.
Mm.
And I kind of like with anything I do when I kind of jump in head first, I went and started listening to a bunch of podcasts and picked up some books and done things like that to kind of learn the process. I still listen to there's a number of podcasts I listen to in regards to writing so that with everything I'm still learning more and more about the art and craft of it. I didn't go to school and do like an MFA or anything like that. I got a business degree. So so definitely not the fine arts kind of stuff. And so I tried to absorb and consume as much as I could about the science behind it almost. When you're as you're writing, how to make sure you're not head hopping and the making sure you kind of keep the trying to learn how to use commas, which I still don't know how to do, and those so all of that kind of stuff. And so that was kind of how I first approached just the art of novel writing, was really learning, hey, how do you do this stuff. um, and like I said, just consuming a bunch of, again, reading about it, podcasts, that kind of stuff.
Mm. No, that's good. And I actually had an idea now for you need to, and I always tell um, authors that you need to combine your writing skill and like the books you write with your the skills you have in your everyday life as well, be it your job or whatever. So if you can write songs, you should actually write to hell with Hallmark, like release a Christmas album or something. A nice parody songs. And who knows, maybe every year, or you can write songs about monsters down the line. Um, you can sing
Oh, that'd be
yourself.
that'd be fun. I may have to do that.
Yeah,
I
make
I
an
did
audiobook of it and do your own songs.
so I did a little bit of that with like To Hell with Hallmark. If you at the very end of To Hell with Hallmark, I wrote a poem. It's my version of "Twas the Night Before Christmas,"
Mm.
and I changed it around. And it starts off and it has the same kind of beat pattern as "Twas the Night Before Christmas." It starts with the "Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature stirring, not even a mouse," and then from there it veers off, and I kind of combined in the Grinch, but the Grinch is a monster that's coming down the chimney, and the kids watching as it's happening, and so. But it's that same kind of pattern as "Twas the Night Before Christmas." Again, that's probably a lot of that songwriting aspect and just having that poem form of things, and so it was a fun little exercise, and
No, that's good.
it's the last little bit in into Hell with Hallmark. And this past year on Christmas Eve, I did a Facebook Live, and I read it on Facebook Live by the fireplace, and all that. So
Nice.
I'll probably start making that an annual thing where every year on Christmas Eve I'll sit by the fireplace and read "'Twas the Nightmare Before Christmas," and so
Yeah, and put the book on sale and see the money roll in kind of thing.
Right.
Um, okay, so back to vampires. Like
Mhm.
I love vampires as well. So what advice would you give an author who wants to write vampire horror novels? So what are the do's and don'ts and the stay away froms, and what is like the golden rule when it comes to writing vampires?
Let's see. Don't make your vampire sparkle. No.
Oh, thank you.
Um, so I would probably say don't be scared to write a vampire novel. I know a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's the story's been told over and over. Every story has been told over and over and over again, but it hasn't been told how you will tell it. So, it's um, you don't have to sit there and try to think, what can I do that would be the most original thing ever? If you do that, you're going to kind of be stuck at the starting line forever trying to do that. You just write and don't be worried about it. Oh, this is very similar to this vampire story that came out in the 1970s, or it's very similar to this one that came out in 2010, or every story has already been told, but it hasn't been told how you tell it. So, it's vampire. I mean, Dracula came out in 1880 something or 1890. I don't have my date in front of me, but so for the past 130, 140 years, we've been writing about vampires. And even then, Bram Stoker took it from, I mean, he took local legends that were already around. So it wasn't even like they were new when he wrote them. So when he wrote it. So like just don't be scared to jump in and say, yeah, I want to write a vampire novel. So that's probably the biggest don't I would say is that.
No, that's good. I like that.
So when it comes to do's or golden rules, I will probably say outline what your rules for vampires are. So what how do vampires act in your world that you're creating? Like are they what does sunlight do to them? How do you kill them? How do what's their normal interaction? How just those general rules because there is
Mm,
so much lore that has been created over the years. It, you're pretty much the sky's the limit on what you want to do. Just make sure that as you are writing your vampire novel, stay consistent in what you do. Don't have it to where, oh yeah, uh, sunlight will kill your vampire, and then later on, he's hanging out at the beach. Well, no. So make sure you stay consistent in what your rules are,
mm,
and because again, like I said, you don't want to say one thing and then something else happens later on that kind of messes with that.
mm. No, it's the same as with any world creation. You need to decide what the laws of physics are in that world of yours. Um, for instance, I know, especially with vampires, in a lot of vampire law and literature, there are class systems. You've got the families, the highly educated, and you've got the ones eating rats in the sewers. Like,
Right.
what's the education level like? Like, how do they talk? Are they, you know, upper class royalty type of um, intellectuals, or just the they're quite easy to fool, like to trap kind of thing, almost animal like.
Right.
Especially like for instance when they get hungry, like when they're too hungry, do they get extremely feral and start making stupid mistakes? Could be. No, I like that. Yes, so authors definitely research, read a lot, like you said, like do some research, watch videos like this, and uh, and go from there. Good. So
Well, I
any
know, like,
no, no, go
I
on.
was gonna say, so one thing I know, like people ask, on with the Night Crew, you're like, where did what I do? I went back and read Dracula, and I was like, I'm gonna start from here and ignore a lot of lore that has happened over years. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna start with Dracula. I even actually referenced Dracula in the Night Crew. I even say that it was a hunter who wrote it as kind of a like a learning manual almost, and
Nice.
I kind of incorporated in. It's like that. Hey, I went back to Dracula and said, and like I said, I'm gonna start here, and this is how my the kind of the laws of the vampire
Mm.
in my world.
No, that's good. And any other general, any other general writing advice for authors out there?
Just the usual, don't stop,
Mm.
just keep going. Um, again, like I said, kind of as I said earlier, there'll be days when it's only 20 words is what wants to come out, and there are days where you blink and 2,000 words have been written, and but even if it's just those 20-word days, that's still 20 more words towards the end goal. So don't get frustrated at the amount. Just know that progress is progress.
Mm. No, that's good. It's I always tell authors that you have to look at every day from like try and step back, look at the bigger picture. You are writing a book. Lots of people say they want to write a book, they never do. You are doing that. You are working on your presence, your brand, your social media, whatever, making connections, going to conventions, going to signings, meeting other authors. Take a step back, look at what you're doing. You are making progress, even though maybe today you didn't write enough. Maybe you took some time to get to know another author. I mean, sometimes author friends go through hard times, and we're there for them, um, strengthening those connections and return the favor when you need a little bit of help. So no, that's good. Always just keep moving forward, one
Well,
day at a time.
and I'm a big believer, especially in the horror community, the indie horror community. A rising tide raises all ships,
Mm,
and with as all of us kind of help and support each other, we're increasing the we're again kind of all rising at the same time, and you as other authors are, if I'm blurbing for certain authors, well, my readers may not have heard of them, and vice versa. Their readers may not have heard of me, and so again, we're all supporting each other, and and it is nowhere near a competition. So don't think, oh, well,
no.
since they're reading that person's book, they're not going to read my book. A reader can read a book way faster than we can write them.
Mm.
It's not a competition. It's again, it's everybody's a big community.
I've actually talked to authors who were in other genres where it was so toxic that they actually saw how nice it was over here, and they just said like screw this, I'm going over to writing horror. And because they always had like an element of it in like their science fiction or
Hmm.
mystery thrillers kind of stuff, and now they're writing horror and they're having the time of their life. So it might be a smaller market in some cases, but I still believe there are a lot of horror readers out there anyway. So we just have to cater for exactly what they need. And from publishing a publishing perspective, if someone just sends me a horror novel, it's actually quite hard to market. But if you focus on a subgenre like vampires, it becomes so much easier, especially when it comes to, search engine optimization, keywords, metadata, finding the readers, because I know exactly who the readers are and how to find them. I mean, it's the perfect, and I think that's why your book is doing so well. Not just our marketing and stuff, but it's an amazing book and the readers are talking about it. The reviews are awesome. So it's just like the perfect package. And so I think this is just the start of a lot more of Brad Ricks and the Night Crew. So fingers crossed.
Well, I will write as many Night Crew books as you need me to write. Don't worry.
That's cool.
So I know with the Night Crew, I know I have gotten some great reviews about how it definitely is a callback to those 80s and 90s vampires that are, nice bloody vampires. I my vampires, my in my stories are they're not love interests. They're not
Mm,
someone that you're that you can save them kind of stuff. It is, if you like the good action horror, like again, that the Lost Boys, that kind of stuff. It definitely is a good throwback to that. And there's a lot of that in it. And I, I'm very much looking forward to like where the series is going and kind of the world that we're building because I've definitely set it up where it's the main character, you're learning about the world as he's learning about the world. And so it's
Mm.
every book, it's expanding. You're finding out more history in regards to the world of the Night Crew, and this world that they're in where all things are real. And so, and they're the ones who are the police to kind of help keep them in line.
Mm.
So, every book kind of expands a little bit more into that world.
Yes, and I think readers would even like to know the origin story of the night crew itself, who started it, why. I mean, you can do novellas off to the side of like origin stories for the main members. No, that's good. It's a world that you can expand. So for people who love action, vampires, blood and gore, I'm thinking like the early seasons of Supernatural.
I,
And
I I tend to describe when I'm talking to people about it, I'm
nice.
like, it's like I tell them, think the Supernatural TV series meets Blade.
Oh, nice. And, yes, and there was a movie like late 90s, early 2000s, also a vampire movie that started with just this bunch of vampire killers moving in on like a farmhouse. Like I love that opening because it was like immediately into the action, just violence and blood and decapitations and stuff. So, okay. Well, for those who find that interesting, go get the book. It's not going to be just the one off. And we are looking at expanding into that universe. Hey, maybe some comic books down the line. Who knows?
Ooh.
So, thanks, Brad. This has been amazing. Love chatting with you, love your work, and can't wait to just create more stuff with you down the line.
Yeah, same. I'm very. I've told you before we chat. I'm very humbled about the faith you have in the series, and I'm very appreciative of all the support that you and Crystal Lake have given my little ragtag team of vampire hunters.
No, it's cool. It's a pleasure. Thanks for coming on the show today.
No problem. Thank you.